Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
On today's episode of Tiger Turf Talk, we host Mr. Blake Meentemeyer, Superintendent of TPC Scottsdale in Scottsdale, Arizona. Today was a phenomenal experience for our kids to be able to hear from the man who is in charge of the course that hosts the Waste Management Open each and every year, which occurred last weekend, to hear firsthand what it's like to be in charge of a course that has such a high standard set by the PGA, USGA, and all the organizations involved in the tournaments, and to really see what it takes to be able to maintain such a high-end golf course, to understand the difference in budgeting, understanding the level of care that goes into the course based on the need and based on the standards that they're expected to maintain, to have people like Jordan Spieth and Tiger Woods and all these guys to be playing on it and feel as if their game is going well based on the fact the greens are rolling correctly and all the different aspects of the course play well. And it was just great to hear about his career, what he has gone through to get to this point, and how hard work and dedication will take you far, and to really have the opportunity to be at the positions he's at because of the time and effort and energy that he's put towards it each and every day of his career. The kids had an absolute blast. We're beyond grateful for Blake's time. We hope he has a great rest of his 2021, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Tiger Turf Talk. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 23rd episode of Tiger Turf Talk. I'm your host, Drew Miller, with your co-host, Carly O'Leary. We have a very special guest on today, Mr. Blake Meentemeyer, the Director of Golf Operations at TPC Scottsdale. How are you doing today, sir?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it, especially with everything that's been going on. Sort of want to dive into it. At that point, you recently hosted the Waste Management Open, which you host on an annual basis. And it's such a large event and so much going on. Could you sort of speak to what the event was like a couple weeks ago and how it went for you guys as the crew?
Yeah, so I'll just give you some background. On a non-COVID year, we have 200,000 plus people on Saturday, and this year we only had 5,000 each day. But this event is a very important event on the West Coast swing for the PGA Tour. You know, they go to Palm Springs, San Diego, then us, then Pebble Beach. So it's a very important on the tour for the PGA Tour.
Sort of to speak to that, you were saying on a normal non-COVID year, 200,000 people is unbelievable.
Yeah.
What are you dealing with on a day-to-day during that event with traffic? I mean, I can't even imagine how many footsteps there are on your course, and it's just got to be extraneous for you guys. And sort of how do you deal with that and prep for that when it comes to that kind of traffic in your event?
Well, thank goodness for the roping teams. You know, if you pay attention to the PGA Tour, they have ropes down the sides. So that kind of keeps everyone off of the main playing corridors. And then for us, we have a lot of infrastructure, like very wide paths, big roads, things like that. So it sounds devastating, but it's actually, we're quite accustomed to it. And 200,000 people. We are the largest attended golf tournament in the world, and we're the second largest attended sporting event in the world, outside of none other than the Olympics. So that kind of gives you a perspective of how important our fan.
That's incredible. I mean, thinking about the Olympics and all that goes along with that, that's insane to me. There's a tradition there that a lot of these kids don't know about, which the 16th hole, am I correct in saying that?
Yep.
not only do you deal with sort of a rowdier crowd compared to normal, um, what is that experience like for, say, you as the director of golf operations, sort of seeing that kind of like total opposite effect of what a normal golf course is, being quiet and whatnot, and having all the craziness of what that is and how that affects you guys, sort of to see your course be put on such a stage that's unique in a sense of golf fandom.
Yeah, no, it for us, it's a great time of the year because when that thing starts going up and being built, it's a temporary structure. So uh, it goes up and then it comes back down every year. When they start building that in say October out or 4 months out, you kind of start to have this natural energy that kind of spreads throughout the crew. So for us, we like it. It kind of helps us gauge and build that energy up towards tournament week, which is usually the last week of January, early February. So it's for us, it's great. It's just awesome to have that energy leading up to and during the tournament.
What are you doing in preparation for the Waste Management Open to ensure that the professionals that are going to be attending play true to the standards set by the USGA?
Yeah. So for us, we have tour has agronomists that check in with us. Typically, it's 60 days out. They'll come and do a site visit with us. We can talk about mowing heights and agronomics and kind of develop a plan for getting to our what we call targets. And we want to start hitting our targets during advance week. So during a normal tournament, you have advance week is the week before. That's when a lot of the major preparations happen or the final details. And then tournament week, you're kind of in a more of a muscle memory of things during tournament week.
You were saying that the stanchion is actually temporary. Um, So probably this question doesn't really feed into the question though. Dealing with sort of shade issues and different things with that hole specifically, um, what do you do to ensure again the playing quality of a professional when it comes to things like that? Sort of coming around the time of the tournament, making it a little bit more difficult to do your jobs on a day to day.
Yeah, so there's a lot of communication and coordination that happens in how they build it. So they make sure to build the areas that aren't going to really impact turf. They build those areas first, and then as they wrap around towards the green and south and east, that morning sun is so important. They build that last, and also typically it's just bleachers, so it's not as high, and the angle allows for sun to get down into on the green, if you will. So as long as we have sun down on the green and they're happy. Some of the tee is shaded, but that's just part of it.
What is it that you're looking for during the event to ensure that everything is going smoothly, especially being on national television?
During the event, for me, I've always said this. It really starts for us. It starts in the fall when we oversee the golf course. And so I have more stress, me personally, at overseeding, making sure we get all the seed down properly. And then once we get into the winter months, after the seed is up, it's really just about keeping it fed and or regulated properly, making sure the water's right because we're out here in the desert. So for us, it's more leading up to tournament. And then once I said, once tournament week comes, it's just autopilot. We're just muscle memory at that point.
With the autopilot of tournament week, could you explain to the kids sort of what happens with your crew and how it grows in size with volunteers, and what that event sort of is like, bringing in more superintendents into a place that they're not usually used to, and what that kind of like creates the camaraderie and whatnot, how that sort of goes, and what the kids could hear about it, maybe being one of the future kids that get to do this if they attend a college or something.
Absolutely. So our team is 52 team members all in, six salary, and the rest are base. So 52, that sounds like a lot, but when you start thinking about things like walk mowing approaches, walk mowing tees, hand raking the bunkers, double cutting the greens in the morning and in the evening, you need a big team. So we bring in 26 to 30 volunteers from all over the country. Most are assistant superintendents, or some are even superintendents themselves. Some are intern. These folks come from all over, and they give us a big boost that tournament week to be able to pull it off, right? It's on autopilot, but it's only on autopilot to an extent. We have to have a lot of hands on property. So we build a tent, we feed everybody, we give them swag, we give out shirts and jackets, and everything's logoed up. So we look very professional while we're out there, and we have fun while we're doing it.
Could you also speak to some of like the partnerships, whether it's companies or certain things that help with the group? Again, the volume goes up so much. What is it you're doing to ensure that you have everything that you need to operate that week? Whether it's equipment, materials, what is it that you're working with, and how does that benefit, say, getting more volume done in such a short period of time, especially
Yeah.
with practice rounds and golf occurring throughout the day and being restricted to the morning and
It's
evening?
That's right. So because there's so much golf happening during the day, we have to do everything in the morning as much as we can, and then everything in the evening as much as we can. So that takes a big volunteer program, and the volunteer program, as you might imagine, costs some money to pull that off, to do the tent and do the TVs and the swag and the food. And we do put everybody in a hotel for that week. So it does cost some money. We partner with Harrell's, Syngenta, BASF. Those are the major ones. And then we have some local vendors that help us out with some additional funds. John Deere, obviously, the TPC network has had a long-standing relationship with John Deere to where they help fund us. They also loan us some equipment, a lot of gators, those type of things, a few mowers, but not too many, because we have 36 holes. We have a lot of mowers to pull from week, but yeah, normally they would, loan us whatever we need. They'll find it and we'll have it.
That's awesome, especially with the camaraderie and everything with the industry. So you've been running this event for quite some time now. Has there ever been a crazy event that you remember most that has been sort of the toughest challenge you faced that you guys overcame during the week of the event?
It's funny you say that, because there's a tournament week. It just kind of goes with the course. Last year was we had 3 valves blow out during tournament week. Luckily, we caught everyone in time, got it shut off. We had, irrigation here in the West, we have lateral valves everywhere. So if there's a leak or a break, we can get it turned off like that. And luckily, we were able to find it and turn it off quickly. But there's always something that happens. So no one knew it, but inside 16 was actually partially flooded on Saturday night of last year's tournament. And then we had it all cleaned up, worked for a couple hours into the night, kind of from that 8 to 10 period at night. Got it tidied up, and by the time the cameras were rolling Sunday morning, no one really knew the difference. So there's always something that happens, no question.
That's what makes it fun, right?
It wouldn't. Yep, that's right.
I would have panic attacks if that happened to me. Oh man, that's crazy. Is there anything about the event that you think is unique to Scottsdale compared to, again, you have events that you were talking about on the West Coast. You think anything that's unique to what you guys do in comparison to other groups?
Well, I mean, for me, I would say it starts with the fans. We have a lot of fans, but what that allows the host organization, the Thunderbirds, to do is to donate to charity. And that's what the PGA Tour is all about. If you get down to our core, it's about raising charity. Every week on the tour, they raise charity and give it back to the local community. But for us, because we're so popular with our fans, last year they donated $14 million to local charity. That's one event, 14 million, and it's steadily grown every year to where they're at.
Incredible.
Yeah, they're at in the 167 million, I think, is where they're at since the tournament started. So that's the biggest thing for us, is knowing that money is going to go back to the communities. Pretty neat.
Shifting the time, been like through the turfgrass industry to get to where you are today as the director of your program?
Yep. So I grew up on a small farm in Southern Illinois. I've always wanted to do turf. So I went to school at University of Illinois for turf. I've always known that since I was, a young boy growing up. And really what got it all started was internships. That played a big influence on where I ended up. I did 2 internships in Chicago. I went out to California to Bel Air Country Club in LA, and I was just doing that to kind of experience something new and try something different. I always thought I'd end up back in the Midwest, but as luck would have it, I guess I did a pretty good job, because they asked me to come back as an assistant superintendent during my senior year of college. So I had a job locked up already October of my senior year in college, whereas all my peers and my friends were kind of waiting the last minute to find that job right before they graduated. So that was pretty neat. If you in this business, you can catch the eye of the right people, you can really go places. So for me, once that started, I went back to Bel Air Country Club as an assistant, and then you start networking with people, and all of a sudden, these doors start opening. And so for me, it was I went back to grad school for a little while at University of Illinois. Then went back to Bel Air, and then Torrey Pines opened up, so I was down at Torrey Pines for 2 years. All kind of got going, and then next thing you know, I'm with the USGA for a couple of years. And then next thing you know, I'm with the PGA Tour. So it's just, if there's ever a door that opens, I would suggest to walk through it, because you never know how many more doors are going to open after that first one.
Following up on where you went to school, was that decision or that program, how important was that to your career as a golf course manager?
We definitely want to get in the right program. Luckily for us in this business, there's a lot of good programs out there. I don't think you can really go wrong. You just got to get going and get started. We need young people in this industry. I can't tell you how much we need young people. I can't say that enough. So whether it's 2 years, 4 years, doesn't matter. And I get hired almost immediately after you graduate. I can promise you that.
Following up on school, can you speak to your experience on the program? There are quite a few of us interested in attending a school where the turf program is like a huge focus for us. Is there, just to talk about your experience on that?
Yeah, so I went to University of Illinois, and that turf program was fairly small, but what struck me was their horticulture program was very strong, and ag is very just strong in general. So turf in specific classes. I had horticulture classes and ag classes. I had some turf classes. So it really is you can kind of get to the end point in many different ways. You can do crop and soil, you can do horticulture, you can do turf. There's lots of pathways to get to the same spot.
You sort of talked about it before about your internships. Can you speak to the students of how important it is to take that step and really get your foot in the door, whether it's internships or a front level job, see that they come out of our high school program and they don't want to go to college? Sort of just the significance and the role that played in jumpstarting your career.
I will tell you it's huge because the key to that is to find some mentors. So I was able to find some mentors through that internship process, and they were able to connect me and to connect all the dots. So my first one, he said, okay, go work here next year. And then that one said, okay, go work here next year. And next thing you know, you're building your network. And I've been cheering for you. So it's critically important to get in front of some key individuals and to develop those relationships. I can't tell you enough how important it is to have some good mentors in this business.
Can you speak to a couple of those mentors? Maybe talk about sort of what they did for you and how that, again, we were just talking about how they impacted your journey to where you're at now.
Yeah, I'll talk about three. One was Randy Waller, my second internship in Chicago. He was the connection out to Bel Air in California. That leads me to Brian Sullivan. He was and is one of my mentors. I still text him regularly because this business uniquely is, we all care for each other and we want to see each other succeed. So that's pretty neat that you can always have someone to talk to or to make a phone call to or to ask a question about. This one is Paul Vermeulen at the PGA Tour. I volunteered for him at the President's Cup in '09, and that kind of helped to open some doors here at the PGA Tour. So, gosh, yeah, that's so important to have people. If you can prove yourself early and you can show them that you're have a bright future, they'll pay attention and they're going to help you out along the way.
That's awesome. So I want to sort of shift it in a different direction. As the director, you obviously have multiple levels to what your job entails. Could you sort of speak to the kids about what your job entails, having multiple courses and everything and prepping for, again, you have one of the largest events in the world. If not the largest events, I'm not counting the Olympics because it's just not fair. So what is that like and what does your job entail based on what everything that goes into it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, I'll tell you that, because level, it's not as much about the turf. It is always about the turf, but it's also about people management and business management and how to best use resources. So for us, we're about a $5 million budget. So how do you use those resources to make the facility the best it can be? And it's a lot of fun. I'll have to tell you, they don't teach you all those skills in college. And when you get out in the real, and you start learning these things, it can be a lot of fun. So like for us, I have 5 assistant superintendents underneath me. Well, 1 superintendent, 4 assistants, an equipment manager, an agronomy administrative assistant. And so I'm always working with those individuals, and then they're working with the team. But it's all about people, relationships, and that's the fun part.
For sure. We had Matthew Wharton on earlier on, way back. That was one of our first episodes. And we asked him about the equipment manager. With such a large course, how much of a role do they play in your day-to-day and making sure everything's prepped? And I mean, especially with the large event, they are working 24/7 constantly, checking 100 times more than any other golf course in America on the equipment. Could you sort of speak to what their influence is on your crew and how important they are to you?
Well, I tell you, they're absolutely vital to our success. An equipment manager, two equipment technicians, and then a third equipment technician that basically focuses on grinding reels and making sure everything's parallel and cutting to perfection. So we have a four-man team, and that four-man team is, especially during tournament, they are full-time because they're out checking equipment as it's out in the field. When the equipment comes in, they're checking it as it comes in. So you start using mowers twice a day. Now you're checking them twice a day, and then again at the end of the day. So it's just so vital for us. We have, when we start talking about mowing greens at 0.085, you start getting to that level of precision, and things have to be checked all the time. So we couldn't do it without our equipment management team, maintenance team, equipment technicians, equipment managers. I mean, that's another avenue for young people. Equipment managers are so hard to find. And if, savvy in those areas, boy, you could do well in this business.
Following up on what you said with you and your crew and the jobs that they have on a day-to-day basis, what does an average day look like for yourself along with the members of your crew during a regular year without any large-scale events such as a major championship?
Yeah, so we have a very busy property. Take today, for example, we're basically sold out from 7:30 in the morning until 3 o'clock. That's both courses. So a lot of golf. We try to get out and do as much. We start at 5 right now, but we'll go down to 4:30 in the summer. Get as much done as we can out ahead of play. And then we still do tasks that are kind of in the peripherals during play. And then we even have a few afternoon guys that come in and take care of things in the afternoon. So it's a very busy place, but with that many rounds of golf being played, it's a full-time job. I'll tell you that, and it keeps you, the play keeps you busy, but the seasons, there's always agronomic things that are taking place based on the season. So pretty soon here, we're going to get into transition, which means we're going to switch from our cool season crop to our Bermuda grass base crop, our warm season grass. So we get into the spring, we do transition, and then in the summer we have 18-day closures on each course. We'll do aeration, and then in the fall you're overseeding, and then in the winter it's tournament. So it's a constant evolution through the calendar that keeps us on our toes.
So you were talking about the Bermuda grass base. What type of Bermuda grass, and what is it that you are maintaining on the different levels of the course from the greens to the tees?
Yeah. So on our greens, we have Tiff Eagle. It's an ultra dwarf Bermuda grass. It's been awesome for our property and for all of our properties across the TPC network. And then we oversee that with velvet bent grass, Poa trivialis, and then all the other areas are 328 in the fairways and Bandera Bermuda grass in the rough. Again, that's a summer grass, and then it's overseeded with cool season grasses in October. We use an 80% perennial ryegrass, 20% fine fescue blend on our overseeded acreage. What that does is we get just a smidge cold here at night in December and January, and that fine fescue just helps give us a little extra pop, a little extra growth in those cold period. Can get a couple weeks out of the year.
So I was actually going to ask about that here in a second. I was able to go out to Phoenix a couple years ago, right around this time, and again, it's a great time for, again, ryegrass or your cool season grasses, but you do have those couple nights where it will get down really cold into the freezing point. Other than the fine fescue, is there anything that you're doing, especially like the weeks leading up to the event? What is it that you're doing to protect that stuff, protecting your grass for that event?
Yep. So that's a huge reason for the velvet on the greens. Gives you a little extra cold weather tolerance. And then some of it's kind of protection. We kind of go into protection mode. We use November to grow the crop, October to get the crop up, November to grow the crop, and then we start kind of getting into protection mode in December and January when it gets cold. We can have frost here at it will frost for sure at 41, 42, 43, and then we can even have frost at 44, so 44 degrees. So you're kind of scratching your head like, gosh, that's way above freezing, and it is, but just the way we are in our macro environment, we kind of sit down in a bowl. If we don't have any wind, we're going to get frost. So it's kind of an interesting environment. So we go in protection mode in the winter. We do things like alternating mowing and rolling on the greens. So one day we'll mow, the next day we'll just roll. We'll do things like only cut them once a week. It sounds strange, but that time of the year, just not a lot happening. I'd rather do that than over mow it and have thin areas for the tournament.
And I sort of talking about how you're mowing and rolling. Could you sort of explain to the kids what cultural practices you're focusing on, and maybe even more specifically during that transition period where you're going and you're sort of preparing for the summer? What is it that you're focusing on for your cultural practices, from aerating to top dressing? What is it that is going to bring you to the end of transition, getting ready for those summer months in the hot desert of Scottsdale?
Yep. For us, it's starts with water management and ends with water management. Last year we only had 0.94 inches in 10 months, so less than an inch in 10 months. So it's all about water management, salt management, flushing greens, and we're lucky enough here that we have 18-day closures in the summer, so we'll get our aeration in on all our surfaces in the summer. Gosh, it's just a cycle. You just have to kind of have to start with the tournament date and work backwards and plan out your year.
We sort of talked about overseeding and how you have, again, 80%, 20%. How heavy are you going on your overseeding rate? And how has that changed over the years? I mean, I'm sure when you first started, fine fescue really wasn't known or used. What was that sort of evolution of overseeding for you guys to be 100% ready for the camera to be on it 24/7 for the event? And just, again, it's just a gorgeous course overall, from striping, all the different things that you do compared to other courses that we see with these major championships.
Yeah, so we do 600 acres, 600 pounds to the acre on pretty much everything, and then we kind of sweeten the fairways with another 100 pounds. So fairways get 700 pounds, rough gets 600 pounds to the acre, and then like tees get 900 pounds to the acre. So you can kind of visualize that. You want your tee really a little bit thicker to start, and then your fairways is important, and then your peripherals. So it's a good amount of seed. It's if you're kind of add all that up across 2 courses and our acreage, it's north of $200,000 worth of seed. So, but it's an important part, as you said, to our business model. We have a lot of folks in a normal year, but even this year during COVID, we've had a lot of folks come from out of state. They come here to see our beautiful green grass this time of year. And they just love being here this time of year. Sun's shining, 75, 80 degrees. The playing conditions are outstanding post-tournament, and we carry that through all the way through, all the way through kind of mid-May, end of May. We're good year-round, but our focus is kind of Christmas until middle, end of May. That blend was kind of decided pre-me. It was as anything, when you kind of get to this level, you want to do things on a trial basis. So 5-10 years ago, they put things side by side in trials, and lo and behold, the 80% perennial rye and 20% fine fescue turned out to be the best, and it looked the best and played the best. So that's what they went with.
It's funny. We were talking to Travis Hogan last week from the Chiefs, and he used to work on golf courses as well. And he talks about how the trial basis and whatnot. He actually has fine fescue on his field, which is very uncommon for sports fields. So I think that's really cool to see that sort of translation. With everything that you're working on, how important is it for you to have trust in your employees, expecting the same sort of level, that high standard from the championship course to the end of the other course? How do you ensure with all of your employees to have that standard and have the trust between you and them? What is it that you do to develop that trust and that standard?
Well, we do a lot of training. We have, weekly safety meetings, weekly training. A lot of it is just having the assistant superintendents out with the guys at all times, particularly during morning setup. They can kind of help coach. I try not to micromanage my assistants, but we're all swimming in the same direction. We all care so much about the property. Sometimes it can come off like we're micromanaging, but we're not. We're just trying to help coach. So that's the biggest thing, just a lot of coaching, and just always paying attention. I always say that the golf course has a pulse. It's a field of grass. So just paying attention to that pulse, knowing when to water a little extra, or when to fertilize, and when not to mow, things like that. So just having a good sense of that pulse, and then being able to coach the team through those agronomic decisions.
A question that popped into my head. I'm sorry, it's sort of bringing you back to the management of the course. With Scottsdale, the peripherals that you're talking about, how different is that compared to the other courses that you've worked on? I mean, a lot of that's desert. Am I incorrect in saying that?
Yeah, it's decomposed granite, which we call DG. It's a big term out here in the west of the Mississippi, decomposed granite. So all of our deserts we think we have 41 acres or so. Decomposed granite, and it has drip irrigation to the desert plants. Some of those plants still need some water, so we put drip irrigation to them. Things like desert cholla and prickly pear and creosote. Basically just 2 trees out here, mesquite and palo verde. But yeah, with 41 acres with drip irrigation, you can actually save a lot of water just by doing that.
How do you develop your nutrient management and chemical program on an?
Yeah, good question. we're always trying to kind of tweak that program to maximize both playing quality and balance it with the financials. So uh, it's always an evolving program. It's kind of hard to settle in on it. We have a baseline integrated pest management plan. We have a BMP plan. So those, and then we can kind of tweak it from there.
With you were sort of talking to it, and $200,000 on seed is a lot of money. Um, how do you prioritize budget wise with labor, chemicals, feed, materials? Sort of what is it your process to manage the budget, to prioritize certain aspects? What is it that you do to ensure you meet all the different standards that are needed by your crew and by the course members themselves?
Yeah, good question. It's a little it's a little complicated of an answer, but I'll just give you the
Whatever's
basic.
fine, you know.
If you think about budget, what you really need to know going into it is what the largest percent of your budget is, and that is always going to be labor. It can range from 50 to 60%, all the way up to 70%. Okay. If let's call it 60% or 65% is labor. If that's your biggest chunk, you have to be good at managing that chunk, because that's where you're spending your dollars. So for us, for our team, we always preach that you got to manage the labor. You got to be out with them. You got to motivate them, because that's where the money's going. And then in the West, the next part of that budget is water. It can be 10% all the way up to 20%. So if you add those two fractions together, call it 60% labor, 20% water, 80% of your budget is labor and water. So I can nickel and dime the FERT and the chem all I want, but I have to control that 80%.
That's awesome, because it is, and a lot of people don't understand that, especially when we're talking about high school kids. It's important to understand that labor and obviously with being in Arizona irrigation, you need to understand that's the most important aspect for that. Something that sort of coincides with all this, and it probably helps you with budgeting wise on what your needs are. What kind of technologies have you started to use over the years to help you, especially with irrigation and the moisture meter? I can't think of the name. Sorry, it's
Yeah.
for a second there.
Yeah.
What kind of technology are you using on a daily basis to help you prevent any issues, or to sort of help decide on certain aspects of what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis?
Yep. So the TDR that you mentioned, the TDR 300 or 350 now, the new ones, those are vital to our operation. Those are extremely important for checking moisture on greens and collars. I even sometimes ask my guys to go test some spots out in the fairways just to confirm what we're seeing. Those are big for us. A lot of guys like to use my guys like to use their cell phone to do irrigation on their cell phone. We have that capability now, which is pretty neat. I'm kind of a little more old fashioned. I like to go to the clock, and check the clock anyway. So those are the two big ones. There's a lot of digital job boards now. We use advanced scoreboard test track. Our equipment manager uses OnEquip. We'll be working towards GPS sprayers in the coming year. Boy, it's moving pretty quick here in the last 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I agree with you. We have the kids. I think it was 2 years now. Wow, that's crazy. We were down at Virginia Tech, and they got to drive a GPA spray rig. It was pretty insane to think about where it all started to where it is now.
Yeah.
And the money that'll be saved, that's going to be awesome for all golf courses across the country. Hopefully it becomes more and more affordable over the years, but that's always important to know. With everything, and with all the different things that you can do to manage, and you were saying labor is one of the most important things to manage. What sort of strategies do you use to keep morale up, make sure that you have a good sense of what's happening with your crew, whether it's someone who needs a little help with certain aspects of their work? You talked about how everyone takes pride in the tournament, and sort of how each year comes around, it sort of gets everybody amped up in a sense. What is it that you're doing specifically to help with that?
Good question. I mean, for me, it's my team is not. We're not the type that gets angry with folks if they don't do something right, just perfect. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be solid. We need to be good. So we use coaching a lot, and from a motivation standpoint, we like to celebrate our victories. We'll have some lunch trucks come in, or do a cookout. And honestly, the best thing you can do is what I do every morning. I come in for 5, and I'm there at the door saying good morning. And I like to be at the door at the end of the day saying thank you if I can. And that's the biggest thing. Our team wants to know that we're paying attention to them, and we're caring about them as individuals. And once we're doing that, because they're taking care of us, so that's the biggest thing for us.
Being so involved with your team, is there anything that you believe you can't learn unless that would be beneficial for students to know and keep in?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just to not be afraid to open up those doors when they come across as potentials. Trying to think what else. Some business classes are always important. Those will serve you well as you kind of climb the ladder. Yeah, those are the big ones. I mean, just being open-minded to know how much opportunity out there. If you can just open your mind and be willing to try something, and knowing it's okay to fail, you can always go back. I've always said that. I can always go back and go home and farm, but knowing that I've opened up some doors and tried, that's the main thing.
So, sort of to piggyback on that question, we usually ask this question: if there was something that you could tell yourself when you first started, maybe when you were at the University of Illinois, what would you tell yourself to better prepare you for what was ahead in your career, so that whether it's a day-to-day thing, or whether it's like over time you need to understand this in order to be successful, what would that one thing be that you would tell yourself?
I would say just to be a sponge. I mean, when I was going through the program, I thought I knew everything. And when you get out in the real world, you find out very quickly that, those college is important. You want to be a sponge and soak up as much of it as you can. So that way, when you get to your first job, or your second job, or your third one, you really start using and pulling from that sponge. So just soak it up, take good notes, and just try to take every opportunity and use it to your advantage.
Can you explain what the Mace compared to the rest of your year?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy tournament week. the golf course gets is showcased to our local fans, but to not just to local, but to the nation and to the world. Really, I mean, the broadcasting now all across the world. So I love having that showcased. It showcases our team's work, and I love for that. I love that for them that they get to see their work. You know, they get to see, you know, a 17 approach or whatever it may be. So I really like that for them that they get to see their hard work on national television.
I appreciate how you said that, because there are times where like we'll be watching a sporting event and I'll notice something and my family gets angry with me, like, stop looking at the grass and pay attention to the game or something like that. So I think that's awesome. With again, sort of you're talking about where they can have that moment. What is it for you as a leader to sort of have that opportunity to show it on national television, but also share it with your crew and even the people that come in like for just the week? What does that mean to you, sort of as the leader of the group, and how does that benefit uh, you and the crew in a sense?
It's just an immense sense of pride, knowing that you gave it your all and that your team gave it their all. You know, it's just an immense sense of pride, and you just have to kind of feel thankful and grateful that we get to do this, grow grass for a living. You know, we get to come to work and work outside and work with agronomy and work with people, and we get to host golfers from all over the country all winter long, and they come here and then they have fun, you know, and they laugh and they chip it in, and that's just so cool to have folks come and play your course, and for them to have fun and recreate. That's so important to their lives, and I think it means a lot for obviously for our team as well. But just knowing that we're providing those recreational activities and opportunities for people to stay healthy, both mentally and physically, is everything.
And I think that is the best way to put it, with especially with the COVID year, mental health wise and everything. And you, with the stature of your course, the memories that you're making, whether it's that spectator who's screaming their head off at 16, or if it's Tiger Woods who hit a hole in one or something. I think that's so important to understand as our high school students are learning about this firsthand. But like, for everyone that listened to this, like, that's so important to understand the idea behind the fact that all the hard work that you guys do goes towards that, which is incredible. I did want to ask, for your experience that you've been through, whether and with like the GCSAA, what is your favorite part about the industry as a whole? And what would you say to the kids who might be interested in starting a career in golf course management? What would you say is so great about the industry, um, specifically to your experience?
Oh, wow. Well, I think number one, well, there's a couple things. One, what I just echoed a second ago with providing enjoyment for golfers, and you know, you're just awesome. For us, for our industry, you know, the GCSAA and all of the people in our industry, very tight knit group. We all look out for each other. It's just really neat. And then thirdly, with that, there's lots of opportunities. If you want to go be a superintendent in Arizona or California, you can do that. If you want to go travel internationally, to travel to South Korea a few years ago to look at some courses and give some advice. So it's just so many options. You know, you can go to Hawaii, you can go to Bermuda, there's golf being played all over the world, and it's just really neat to be able to think about all the possibilities that are in front of the young people today. It's really pretty neat.
I think I totally agree with the immense opportunity. And like if there's a specific place you want to go, there's nothing stopping you from going and doing that, especially when you in the golf industry. So I think that's great. Um, so the way we sort of wrap this up is sort of we asked what would be your words of advice, your words of wisdom, not for entering the industry or any industry really, but these are high school students who are coming out of high school who are preparing to start things in the real world. What would be your best words of advice, sort of entering the world as a young individual, moving forward with their life?
Good question. I think I could go. I think the most important thing is putting your best foot forward. And like, let's say you do an internship in the summer, I would recommend doing 3. Do an internship every summer and put your best foot forward and get noticed. I will say that if you can get noticed by the right people, you can go a lot of places in this business, and that will serve you well if you work hard as a young for internships. That'll set your whole career up for success, in my opinion.
Well, we want to thank you so much for coming on, guys. What do you say?
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
We really
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
we really appreciate you taking the time. We're glad you had a fantastic event. It was gorgeous on TV, and we really appreciate you taking the time.